When my dad raised his glass at my sister's wedding and said, "Some kids make you proud, others just don't," the entire hall fell silent, forks paused mid-air, and I swear even the music glitch stuttered for half a second. My chest tightened, so hard I thought I might actually pass out right there between the buffet table and the floral centerpieces. I tried to laugh it off, but the look on my sister's face, this tiny flicker of panic mixed with embarrassment, made it crystal clear he meant exactly what it sounded like. He meant me, his oldest daughter, the one who had spent her entire life trying to earn a nod of approval. He never once felt like giving, and as everyone turned their heads toward me, waiting to see how I'd react, I had one question buzzing like a hornet in my skull. Was I wrong for what I eventually did? And if you were in my situation, would you have done the same thing? It still feels unreal when I think about how this all started, because honestly, if you met us years ago, you'd think my dad was the proud father of two accomplished, well-balanced sisters. My younger sister, Emily, has always been the golden child, sweet, polite, and honestly talented. She could walk into a room and people immediately gravitated toward her. She wasn't trying to steal attention. She just had that natural charm, and I loved her. I really did. Even though I was older, I never felt jealous of her. I just wished our dad treated me with half the kindness he showered on her without question. Growing up, our dad would brag about Emily's grades, her piano recitals, her school awards, even the cute little crafts she made for Mother's Day. But whenever it came to me, it was always, "Well, you could have done better," or "Why didn't you try harder like your sister?" Even when I did everything right. I graduated with honors. I worked 2 part-time jobs during college. I helped Mom through her surgery while Emily was still away at school. But somehow none of that ever mattered. Dad only ever saw what I lacked. Emily saw it too. She would try to defend me, try to redirect the spotlight, try to make him see that I wasn't failing at life, I was surviving it. But our dad had a way of twisting things, of acting like he was just being honest or motivational, when really he was cutting me down piece by piece. I don't know when exactly I started shrinking myself just to avoid his criticism, skipping, telling him about promotions, avoiding family dinners, pretending I was busy just so I wouldn't have to sit across from him while he listed out my shortcomings, like a grocery list. But everything boiled over about 6 months before the wedding. Emily had gotten engaged to her boyfriend. Tom, great guy, super patient, the kind of man who adored her in a way that made my heart warm whenever I watched them together. When they announced their engagement, the whole family celebrated. Dad popped champagne, hugged Emily, clapped Tom on the back, and gave this whole speech about finally having someone worthy join the family. When I hugged Emily afterward, she whispered, "You know he didn't mean it like that." But we both knew he did. That was the moment I felt something inside me start to shift, like a small crack forming in a glass that had been under pressure too long. As the wedding planning kicked off, things only got worse. Dad insisted on being involved in everything. Guest lists, seating charts, the budget, the music, even the type of flowers Emily should carry. But he didn't just want to help. He wanted control. And since Emily hates conflict, she let him. I tried staying out of it, but somehow he still managed to drag me into passive-aggressive jabs. If I offered to help, he'd say something like, "Let's not risk it. Emily deserves perfection." If I stayed quiet, he'd comment, "Some people just don't care enough to be involved." It didn't matter what I did. I was always in the wrong. The final straw came during the bridal shower. Emily asked me to make a little scrapbook of her childhood photos to display on a table. I spent weeks working on it, printing, cutting, arranging, adding little notes, and inside jokes only the two of us would understand. On the day of the shower, when I proudly set it out on the display table, I caught my dad looking at it with this stiff expression. I thought maybe, he'd tell me I did a good job for once. Instead, he said, loud enough for everyone around to hear, "Did you make this?" Well, it's not really the quality I expected for something this important, but I suppose it'll do. Several guests exchanged awkward glances. My face instantly burned. Emily looked horrified and immediately tried to defend me, but the moment was already poisoned. After that, I pulled back. I still attended every event, still supported my sister, still helped her in the ways she wanted, but I kept my distance from him. And trust me, I wasn't the only one who noticed his behavior. Mom saw it. Emily saw it. Even Tom quietly pulled me aside. once and apologized for things he couldn't control. I told him it wasn't his fault, because it wasn't, but hearing it acknowledged by someone else felt like breathing for the first time in years. Then the wedding day arrived. The ceremony was beautiful. Emily looked like a walking fairy tale, the kind that stops your heart for a second, because you can't believe something so perfect exists in real life. I held her veil, fixed her train, hugged her when she cried happy tears. Everything felt magical, until the reception. And that's where things went from uncomfortable to catastrophic. It happened during the toast. The DJ called for speeches, and Dad practically leapt out of his seat. I remember thinking, please God, just let him get through this without saying something awful. But the universe wasn't on my side that night. He tapped the microphone, cleared his throat dramatically, and began his speech about family and pride and how Emily had always been the daughter who made him feel like he succeeded as a parent. I felt this weird tingling sensation, like the air was changing pressure around me. Then he raised his glass and said the line that still haunts me. Some kids make you proud, others just... He paused, looked directly at me, smirked. Don't. The gasp that rippled through the room felt like a punch. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." The waitstaff actually stopped walking. My heart dropped straight through the floor, and every childhood memory of every cutting remark he'd ever made slammed into me all at once. Emily's eyes filled with tears, not the happy kind. Tom's jaw clenched so hard the muscles in his neck tightened. My mom said, "Richard, what is wrong with you?" But he just shrugged like he was the victim, like he was the brave truth-teller exposing some family secret everyone needed to hear. And in that exact moment, something inside me snapped. Before I tell you what I did next, I want you, yes, you, listening, to pause for a moment and think, what would you have done in my shoes? Your sister's wedding, a hall full of guests, your father humiliating you publicly on the happiest day of someone you love. Would you walk away? Would you confront him? Would you explode? Because I had to choose in seconds, and I still wonder if I chose right. So here's what happened. I stood up. Not dramatically, not angrily, just stood up slowly, like my body was moving on autopilot. Everyone watched me, their eyes wide, waiting for an explosion. Even Dad looked surprised, like he thought I'd just sit there and swallow the insult like always. I took the microphone from him. Not snatched, not yanked, just calmly took it from his hand. And in the most steady voice I've ever managed in my life, I said, "Dad, I'm so glad you're proud of Emily. She deserves every bit of love and praise you give her. But I'm done being the child you use as your punching bag just so you can feel superior." A murmur rolled through the crowd. I continued, "I've spent my entire life trying to earn your approval. I worked hard. I took care of Mom when she was sick. I helped Emily every step of the way with this wedding. And still, it's not enough. Nothing I ever do is enough." My voice cracked, but I kept going. "So if tonight you want to embarrass me instead of showing love on your own daughter's wedding day, that says a lot more about you than it ever will about me." Dad tried to grab the mic back, muttering, "Stop being dramatic," but I stepped away from him. "And to Emily," I said, turning to her, "I love you more than anything. I hope you know none of this is your fault. You deserve happiness today, and I'm not letting Dad ruin it for you." Emily was already crying, big, silent tears that broke my heart. But she nodded at me like she understood every word. Then something I didn't expect happened. Applause. Soft at first, then building. People actually clapped. Tom stood up, walked over, hugged me, and whispered, "Thank you." My mom hugged me too, telling me she was proud of me. Words I hadn't heard from either parent in years. Dad stood frozen in place, his face pale and angry, looking like someone had yanked the pedestal out from under him. He left shortly after. Stormed out, actually. Didn't speak to anyone. Didn't even congratulate Emily again. Just grabbed his jacket and walked out of his own daughter's wedding reception. And here's the weird part. The atmosphere actually improved after he was gone. People relaxed, laughed again, danced again. Emily even joked later that her wedding gift from me was removing the emotional storm cloud hovering over the room, but the aftermath was messy. Dad didn't talk to me for 3 months. Then when he finally did, it was a long text about how I humiliated him, how I made the family look bad, and how I owed him an apology. I didn't respond. For the first time in my life, I didn't bend. Mom told me privately that he was more embarrassed than angry, because people had finally seen how he treats me, And although she wished it had happened in a kinder way, she admitted, she was relieved someone finally said what she never had the courage to say. As for Emily, she told me that my speech didn't ruin her wedding. It saved it. She said she had been terrified that Dad's comment would stain her memory of the night forever, but me standing up for myself shifted the focus. The moment became about truth, about love between sisters, about setting boundaries, not about his cruelty. And me, I felt lighter. Not happy, not proud, just lighter. Like I had taken off a backpack full of bricks I'd been carrying since childhood. Now, months later, Dad and I are still distant. I'm not sure if things will ever go back to the way they were. But the more I think about it, the more I realize maybe that's a good thing. Maybe the version of normal we had was never healthy to begin with. Maybe calling out the truth was the only way to finally break the cycle. So, was I wrong for standing up to my father at my sister's wedding? Was I out of line for confronting him in front of everyone when he publicly humiliated me first? Or was this the moment I finally reclaimed a piece of myself I had lost years ago? If you were on my side like this video, subscribe for more stories like this. And tell me in the comments what you think. Was I justified or did I go too far? I'll see you all in the next story.